All right, another sun-drenched day here, 29 sunset, and reading the meditation that was written this day, the 21st of April, 2004, commemorating it this day, April 21st, 2014. And this is transitional material, right? Ultimately, this material became the beginning of chapter 5 on Heraclitus, but it's transitioning from the close reading and reimagining of Plato's allegory, the cave. And so, yeah, that's still sort of happening as I make a transition towards Heraclitus. The key, I meant to make this point yesterday in the commentary. The key is the moment that I wrote about in yesterday's meditation, where I talk about the sage, the figure of the sage, who I'm identifying in the form of the one who is emancipating the cave dweller, breaking the chains of what I call the truth of concealment, and then getting them underway and learning. That moment is significant, and that figure is significant, and that's setting up the discussion of Heraclitus. So, but first, more on the allegory as I make this transition. We have unpacked the mystery of the prisoner's releasement as a beginning initiated by a calling and a provocative turning around, and have read the ascent and passage out of the cave as the passing into the open region, as the fulfillment of the preservation of natality. The releasement unfolds as a liberatory process, as the gradual emergence of freedom. But all along the way, as we have seen, the liberation has happened through the binding force of a relation. Throughout, we have seen a significant other, the teacher, as the one who bears the message of releasement, who calls out and turns around, whose saying disorients and thereby offers the possibility for transformation. The teacher acts as a guide who facilitates, or helps to negotiate the arduous, the unknown, the overwhelming. We have identified the process depicted in the allegory as a series of movements or passages put underway or initiated by turnings. Here we emphasize the guide who enables these passages to be navigated. When we identify the teacher as guide, we indicate again the binding power that persists throughout the process of learning. To be bound by the guide is to entrust oneself to the guiding power of the guide. To entrust is to, quote, invest with the trust or responsibility, to commit something into trust, confide, ask for care, use, or performance, unquote. Dictionary. The apprentice entrusts the teacher with the responsibility to care for her. Her offering is her teachability. She offers herself as one who is capable of learning. If she is received, the teacher is bound by the responsibility to care for her as learner, and to reciprocate by letting learning happen. But this letting of learning happen is now recognized as an active engagement with the other. It is a transportive engagement. To be transported is to be moved, but this movement is made possible by a preparation and a turning. If the student has been prepared for the passing into learning, she is said to be disposed for the movement, inclined to be put underway. Only one who has been so disposed will hear the evocative call of the sage and thereby respond to the tidings, the news, issued as a decree to stand up and look around. But if the student has been prepared, then she has received education of the educator, who now arrives as the teacher to transport her along a strange and new passage, up and out into the open region. So too, at the turning around, the student now receives the offering from the teacher, whose poetic disposition evokes the turning, and initiates the movement. What we see then is the binding force of the other, who is always already offering her disposition to the other, and thereby entrusting her with herself. This offering is a reciprocal exchange. On one side, the teacher, the educator, on the one side, the educator and teacher, the two modalities of the one who prepares, entrusts the student and apprentice with her performance, her saying, and her guidance. On the other side, the student and apprentice entrust the educator and teacher with her natality, her capacity to initiate, create, and act. In both cases, the other makes the most fundamental offering of herself. To offer oneself authentically and in the most fundamental and essential way is to make oneself completely open to the other. To offer oneself is to empty oneself to the other, and in this emptying become wholly available to receive the other. This disposition of emptiness appears originally as the offering made by the educator and the teacher. The initial offering of the student and apprentice is the entrustment of her natality. The educator and teacher is thus the one who takes up this duty, this responsibility, to care for the other. In caring for the other, she preserves her natality, conserves her capacity to be a revolutionary, to create, build, and repair the world. This preservation is a preparation that prepares the student to become the apprentice, the co-learner. The educator reciprocates by offering her disposition as learner, as sage. Thus she spares the student, safeguards, preserves from harm and danger, and frees her. Quote, to free actually means to spare, unquote. Heidegger continues, quote, real sparing is something positive and takes place when we leave something beforehand in its own essence, when we return it specifically to its essential being, when we free it into the proper sense of the word, into the preserve of peace, unquote. This is precisely why the educator's work is identified as the preservation of natality, the conservation of the revolutionary, which prepares the way for the work of the teacher, who releases the apprentice into the open region, the preserve of peace, the region of freedom. This sparing as freeing is an offering by one who has been freed, who wanders in the open region, who speaks with the evocative saying of the sage. The sage offers herself as disposition, as the one who is disposed to learning with others. To prepare is thus to offer oneself, one's disposition. Within the context of the allegory, specifically the second and third parts, where liberation unfolds through the releasement of the captive from the cave, this offering appears as a transportive disposition, as a disposition that puts learning underway, that is capable of releasing and turning. This is the disposition of being, unfolding in the dynamic process of the twofold play. The sparing as an offering which frees, quote, is the disposition that transports us into this or that basic relation to beings as such. More precisely, disposition is what transports us in such a way that confounds the space-time of transporting itself. We cannot yet ask how this transporting is to be understood, but this question is an essential track within our question of openness as such, existence, Dasein, unquote. In fact, we have not only taken up this question, but offered a tentative response throughout our exploration. For we've understood this transporting as another moment within the purposeful wandering together we have named learning. So, the first thing is that this meditation impresses me because I've come back, I think at this point now, moving beyond the text of the allegory, back to some of what I can only describe as originary writing. And I think that if I were to title this, the work today, I would title it something like Originary Phenomenological Meditations, because it gets more to the point of both the intention of the writing, which is to do something original and to initiate thinking, but also loses some of the baggage, I think, that poetic has. I mean, poetic is just a very big, historically very heavy term. It means so much, and so many people claim it. Whereas originary and original, it doesn't really have, it's not a genre, like in the same way that poetry is, and there is really, people don't use original or originary the same way that they talk about poetics. So I'm tempted, actually, moving forward, to call and abbreviate the works OPMs instead of PPMs. Of course, that would be a move that would be in the spirit of the project itself, which is to make an important shift in a spontaneous and improvisational way, right? So in the spirit of the way that the work came about, I would think that would be okay to do that, and I think I'll note that. So the writing at this point, with this meditation number 68, as I move from the allegory, and sort of with Heidegger, he's always there to prompt me and to give me resources. So in a certain way, he's the sage that's transporting me along. The writing comes back to some of that more originary type of writing that is in the beginning of being and learning, and the beginning of this writing. So that's the first thing I would say in response to what I just read. The second thing is, I was appreciated the way that the writing led into the citation of Heidegger. And again, I didn't take any notes, so I don't know if that quotation was something I had and was writing into, and sort of prompted it. It could well be, but I don't recall it. But I thought it was a good way to move into that, because that's a very, very significant and important quotation, to talk about disposition and being disposed, and then to quote Heidegger, who talks about the disposition that transports us into this or that basic relation to being as such. So the sage's disposition is absolutely crucial, right? It's absolutely crucial because it's the way in which the force of learning gets underway, the transformative force of the learning experience gets underway. And over here I have my daughter Sophia, who is suntanning herself. I should get her on camera just so that this is what I'm contending with. Sunning herself, as she should be. It's a beautiful day, and so I got a little bit distracted there. But yeah, it's a beautiful day, gorgeous day. It's a great day to be doing this work, and it's kind of cool, to have that, Easter Sunday and then Easter Monday, Patriots Day in New England, where I live. I'm sure there's lots of other 21st of April means things. It's celebrated in different places in different ways, but it's just a good day to be, talking about a transition happening within the work that's ostensibly happening in the open region, right? So out of the cave, out of the house, out of the truth of concealment, out of the darkness, and into the sunlight. So enacting very much what is being written about, and as it should be, because this work is so much about an existential response and ontological ways of being. Yeah. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. 21st day of April 2014, commemorating the writing from 10 years ago today.